Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television on Channel 1. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. It's NPP's Day in the Sun. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the Vice President and flag bearer, delivered his manifesto to the people of Ghana yesterday at an impressive ceremony in Sekondi, Takoradi. Tonight, we're speaking to the Vice Chair of the Manifesto Committee, Information Minister, now turned Works and Housing Minister, Kojo Oppong. He'll be delving into his review of the night and the challenge facing his candidate ahead of a very interesting election. Stay with us. Welcome back. So MP for Fasi Erebi and Minister for Works and Housing and Vice Chair, right?
Yes, sir.
Of the Manifesto Committee. That's a big position. Wow. So how were you selected? Was it the candidate that chose you? Was it the party? How did you become the Vice Chair of the committee?
I think as a candidate in consultation with the Council of Elders of the party that put together the entire Manifesto Committee, Chairman, Vice Chair, Secretary, technical staff, and then chairpersons and co-chairpersons for the various subsectors that then fed the technical work.
How seriously do political parties take this manifesto thing?
If I would take anything from what has happened, this is my first time of being hands-on involved in the production of this social contract. And I think that if I follow the process of what has gone through, it is a most important document because it can make or unmake you. It is a document that sets the tone for the social contract you want to enter into. It's a document that you then convert into your economic and social policies, which you're supposed to present to Parliament. It is a document that becomes a foundation for your first budget and hopefully your subsequent budget. So if you get it right, chances are you can succeed. If you get it wrong, chances are it could even just mess up the entire campaign if people don't find their promises either aspirational enough or overly ambitious. It can determine whether you win or you don't win, and if you win, it determines whether or not you'll be successful in governance. So it is a very important exercise. It's not just a document, it's the exercise of getting to those policy commitments, and I think we've taken it very seriously. So the manifesto sort of puts all your aspirations as a party for the people into one paper.
Yes. So you may not necessarily say everything on it in your campaign,
no,
but this is the record of your commitment.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
Some people think the manifesto should look at the how and either the development plan should look at the what, because as a country 67 years old, we should agree on what we want to be. The manifesto should just be the angle. Is this something you think makes sense?
Yes, and we agree with that. So in one of our commitments here, we commit that if and when Dr. Bawumia is elected as president, we will seek to do this in the National Development Planning exercise by setting the medium-term what, so that manifestos flesh out the how and also, have the liberty to introduce a few things. In this manifesto specifically, we start off every point by setting out the what and then the how in this manifesto. So it's something we believe in.
I saw 10 people, you being the first, come to report on Akufo-Addo's, was it his 4 years or his 8 years?
Well, the 8 years of the Akufo-Addo administration.
After which there were a few speeches and the candidate came to speak. What informed that approach?
When we say we are looking to break the 8, it's just a branding jargon. But what it is that we are cognizant of the fact that we have done 2 terms in office. We have gone for literally about 8 years. And we are seeking to do something that has not been done so far in our democratic history, which is to have an opportunity to continue. In our history, power has changed almost every 8 years. And so in planning the manifesto and in planning the manifesto launch, we are cognizant of the fact that we are seeking to build on the successes of an administration that has been here for 8 years, of which we have been a part. And we are also seeking at the same time to chart a new course in areas where we think we have not been too successful, and to redefine some new paths where we think that despite successes or failures, attention now needs to be paid. So this is a manifesto that seeks to bridge what has happened with the future. And that's why you see that in the construct of the event, we had a portion where we report on the top 10 things, and then also now bring in, may I say, the new generation of leadership in the party, the new leader of the party, Dr. Bawumia, and his running mate, Dr. Prempeh, now come in to seek to set the tone for what we think should be the future.
Let me show viewers what some consider to be the highlight of the event, where Dr. Bawumia, after reading the speech, sort of made his pitch. I call it was a 10-minute pitch to Ghanaians. I don't know whether it was all scripted, but you notice he was more animated in the last 10 minutes than he was going to the details. So let me just show you maybe 3 minutes of that. That's where my analysis will start from. So here's Dr. Bawumia appealing to Ghanaians to vote for him after delivering the full manifesto.
From the challenges and the priorities we have tackled, from the successes we have chalked, to the hard work to succeed with you on the priorities that I have laid before you today. I will work for you, with honesty and integrity, with wisdom and decisiveness. I have clarity of mind as to what I want to do from day one as president. I will not ask you for a honeymoon to cool off and think about what to do with the responsibility you give me. I am prepared and ready to serve. You know what I stand for. You know my vision. I believe in the ingenuity of the Ghanaian. Together we can succeed in building a progressive society of possibilities, enterprise, compassion, open opportunities, and shared prosperity for every Ghanaian, born rich or poor, born in the north or the south, born Christian or Muslim, born a girl or a leper, or a boy, a leper or a disabled person. I have never been president of Ghana before. I am presenting myself to you for the first time to ask for your precious vote to serve you as your president and to continue the development agenda of the NPP. When you make me president, inshallah, I will implement my own vision that I have outlined. In all humility, I will ask you to give me the opportunity to become one of the most impactful presidents in Ghana's history. In conclusion, dear Ghanaians, what I have presented today are just highlights of our manifesto. There are many more details and policies that are found in the full version. I implore you and entreat you all to read the full manifesto. This manifesto we are launching today is a manifesto of hope, a manifesto anchored on bold solutions to usher in the golden age of good governance and accountability, and a manifesto of possibilities, focusing on quantum leaps in jobs and prosperity. Our positive mindset is built on a strong track record of innovations and achievements. Unlike our friends who regard every life-changing policy proposal as impossible, we in the NPP see possibilities.
So that was Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia making a speech to Ghanaians, very passionate.
Yes.
I don't know how it felt being in the room. People were screaming, watching on television.
Yeah.
Were they genuinely moved by this?
No, they were. Even backstage for people involved in the production, etc. You could see the excitement and the energy, because at this point, he was making a pitch from the bowels of his belly about why you should give me an opportunity to do what I believe in my heart needs to be done for Ghana.
Don't you think his left is a little too late? Because some would say, the program started at 3 p.m. and he did this 10 minutes to 8. But meanwhile, probably this may have made more impact than all of the things you did. We've come to do this 10 different areas, different speeches.
No, but Bernard, this was a climax of the event where the leader of the party and the flag bearer gets to make a case for himself, to speak in his own defense in the court of national opinion about why he should be given that power in the Constitution of the Republic, why he should be made primus inter pares to have the opportunity to serve. You don't crowd that in at the beginning of the show. Secondly, these events like, you know, party conventions sometimes take days to run. We crowded it in a day. If you look at what the DNC is going to do, it's going to take a number of days. We crowded it in a day, 3-4 hours. I know millions of people who are watching across the country, commenting on our platforms, and who are glued and watching and following to get a feel for themselves what this election is about. And a week, even in politics, is a very long time. But 3 months to go is not too late.
Is the election more about the party's performance or about the person who wants? I know it's both, but which one weighs more? Because we've heard people say, look, elections, NDC, NPP are very strong. That's why when a big person leaves a party, the party still does well. So what's your calculation in this particular case?
So first, I think elections mean different things to different people. For us, this election is a battle and a choice between Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and former President Mahama, and the kind of solutions both candidates are preferring to the challenges on the horizon. If you've noticed, we've been very clear, consistently making the point that this election is a choice between Dr. Bawumia and former President Mahama. And the ideas, the innovations, the personal track record that each of them brings to the challenges on the horizon. Challenges we understand.
Not the two leading parties and their 8 equal years that you can compare?
The two gentlemen stand on the track record of their parties, no doubt about that. And we will compare records. If you look at this manifesto, it is heavy on what we have done in 8 years. And in many instances, our record surpasses that of the NDC. But we're saying that at the very top, you would have to make a choice between the two gentlemen. And as the weeks go by, thankfully just on Saturday, I think the NDC is also going to put out their manifesto. You've been talking to Ghanaians. You know the issues that matter to Ghanaians. We are putting out Bawumia's policy prescriptions to respond to those issues. And we're inviting our friends in the NDC to also put out Mr. Mahama's policy prescriptions. And then we can analyze that. If it's cost of living, we agree. There's a global cost of living crisis. It has hit us, maybe in a different measure. But what is Bawumia's response to cost of living? What is Mr. Mahama's response? If you take energy prices, what's Bawumia's response? What's Mr. Mahama? So at the top, it's a comparison of these two persons. And
that suits you because the sentiment generally is that this government has failed in delivering on what it promised. So what he did was to say, despite all that we are saying about the two parties, give me a chance because I haven't, give me the steer. So essentially saying, you can't hold me responsible for everything that's gone wrong because I don't have the steer yet. So in a way, it suits him to say that.
We are of the view that the record does not support that narrative because we have the view that if you look at the things we committed to deliver and the things we have delivered, with the exception of the cost of living challenges, which is actually a big deal, you can't underplay it, which is a big deal to people, we have delivered extensively. In fact, you've heard many of his speeches where he talks about we have delivered more in this area, we've delivered more in this area.
But that's a speech. He hasn't been taken on yet.
Well, no.
He hasn't proved it.
No, oh, he has. He always backs it with the data, and you are yet to have somebody come and say, you say you've done, let's say, 111 medical facilities across the country. It's not true. So if you say you've delivered more in healthcare, it's not true. You are yet to have anybody empirically make that argument. If you state what you have done,
yes, and then you say you've done more.
Yes.
Number one, where is the objective comparison of the record? So, for example, if it's job creation, statistical service or SNIT or something we can use. If it's road, highways. But a lot of the things he says, he says we've done this.
Yes.
He doesn't mention what the other party does, and he says we've done more. It's in a speech.
No. So two things. If you take roads, for example, he puts out the data. If you take medical infrastructure, he puts out the data. If you take jobs, he puts out the data. But what is also important is that nothing is stopping our colleagues on the other side from saying, okay, you've done 2.3 million jobs as per SNIT data. This is our data that we did 3 million or 4 million. Nobody's tied their hands behind them from making that argument. So we make our argument, we pick our victim as we find him, we put our data out.
But you do recognize that.
And we make that point.
I get that point.
I'm just saying that we will disagree with you on what the data says. But even beyond that, we are of the view that this choice is between two persons.
Fine, but you see, you are framing it to be that way. But Ghanaians can say, it doesn't have, even if you've done better than NDC, that doesn't mean you've done what you said you would do. So, for example, if you take your 2020 manifesto, you listed specific things you said you would do in economy in 2016. that you did. You list about 15 specific things. In this manifesto, you don't do that.
Oh.
You list general, I'm coming. In the 2020 manifesto,
Yes.
I have it here. What you
Yes,
did was
yes,
we say we'll do this,
Yes.
and then you tell us the time
Yes.
and the specific points.
Yes.
In this one, you categorize what you've done in broad areas.
Yes.
You don't match them to the promise. That's point number one. Point number two, even if you did better than NDC, which is very debatable, you promise Ghanaians a better life, right? If you take specific aspects of Ghanaians' life, it's even worsened. So there's no way you're going to say, because the record is better than NDC, based on your judgment, it means that means people should vote for you.
So, number one, we have done the previous exercise of tracking the things that we have delivered. And we've put it out there. We've even, beyond that, come out to say where there were errors in what was put out there and how they've been corrected. So the question of answering what we have done, because that's how we came by the argument that we think that we are north of about 70% of the commitments we made in 2016. Remember, in 2016, when we did it, we came back with the Tracker 1.0 to respond to what we had done. 2020, we put out a set of policy commitments. And I think earlier this year, we had the opportunity to put out what of that we have been able to execute. Now we come to a manifesto. And we are saying to you that, and if you go through the manifesto, we recap what we have done. Yes, I admit we haven't benchmarked it for what was promised and what was delivered, but there's nobody who's going to go through all that we have put in our achievement section and say that these have not been achieved. But we are saying that even above all of this,
But
even
the reason
above
is
all
because
of
it's selective.
Well,
because, for example,
you can do the exercise. We have done it, and we have the view that we've done north of 70% of the things we committed to in 2020. You can do it. Other independent people can do it, and we can have a debate about that.
There's a lot of things I can point out to you that you said you would do, which you promised, which have not materialized.
Very well, and we haven't said we've done 100%. I'm saying we have even mentioned that we've done north of 70% of the things that we promised. This is a term in which also we all know the difficulties that we've gone through. I'm not even going to relitigate that. But I'm saying above all of this, there are issues on the horizon that this election is also about. And we are putting on the table our policy commitments, our leaders' policy commitments to deal with those issues.
But to
and we are saying...
no problem, we'll deal with the manifesto. But he himself said that for anybody who makes a promise, we must judge them based on their track record.
Absolutely.
On what they have done.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, that we have to look at what you promised.
Yes.
So, and there are many examples.
Oh, we haven't said we've done 100%.
So, you need to, and the other problem is that you did not, of course, you won't go for a manifesto launch and come and grovel. There was no admission of the failure in the critical issue of the economy. So there has not been an admission that you are blaming Russia, Ukraine, you are blaming COVID for the state of the economy, which was the basis for which people voted for you in 2016 and possibly repeated the mandate in 2020. So for Ghanaians, that would be, if you haven't admitted the reality of a performance, why should I believe you if you say you do 10,000 things?
So two things. If you look at our economy, the big basket of our economy, you have done a lot of economics. There are various variables that go into it. So growth, inflation, jobs, cost of living. If you take all of these parameters from 2016 to 2020, the story is clear where the trends were going. From 2020 up till now, again, you can see for all of these indicators, the key ones that have had some major challenges. Inflation and currency depreciation have been perhaps the most significant. You've seen growth picking back up after the turbulence that we went through. You've seen currency depreciation, though it's been significant, beginning to taper down to a certain level after a number of policies were introduced to try to arrest the situation. You've seen inflation trending downwards, again, after some interventions were made. I make the point that we haven't done 100%. Our data tells us we've done north of 70%. And I'm saying that you can work the numbers, other people can work it, we can have a debate about that. But for us, one of the key things is that going into this election, not only are we accounting for what we have done, not only are we also taking responsibility, that's part of what you mentioned, taking responsibility for some of the things that have not been dealt with. Because if we haven't taken responsibility for cost of living and how it has impacted Ghanaians currently, despite the causes, why would we be outlining some of the interventions that we think we can roll out?
have you admitted that the reason why people are having a hard time economically? When the finance minister did the regional
town hall meetings in
Accra, he apologized for the DDEP.
Yes.
Because it wiped out people's income.
Absolutely.
There are a number of things that have happened economically that have made people's lives worse.
Yeah.
We didn't hear any admission. Let me give you a good example. So the government has borrowed from the Eurobond market since 2018, $11 billion. Mm-hmm. That is more than all governments in the Fourth Republic put together in the Eurobond market. That is what led us to be kicked out of the international capital market. For the first time in our history, we couldn't pay our debts. That is incredible. Yet, there was no admission to say, maybe we borrowed too much, we are sorry. You follow me? You quick to say it's Russia, Ukraine, and COVID.
But there's a question.
$11 billion.
There's a question that you are leaving out. What was that $11 billion? I don't seek to really litigate all of that. But what was that $11 billion borrowed for? At the time, well, but you know, and you know, this is a debate we've gone. Oh, come on, this is a debate we've gone throughout. When we go for a $3 billion transaction, we come to Parliament, we explain all the uses. At the end of the period, when we account for it, we explain all the uses. At the times that these funds were borrowed, at that specific time that they were borrowed, it did not lead us into a crisis until about 2 incidents happened, which made it difficult for us to particularly earn forex. And when we started having a challenge of earning forex, when we started having a challenge of the downgrades, and then we could not be getting in new forex amounts coming in, you then started seeing a crisis hit us because it was beginning to hover all over the sub-region. In fact, not just our sub-region, all over the world.
But why were we getting the downgrades?
We were getting
because
the downgrades.
Our borrowing was unsustainable.
No, we were getting the downgrades because though we had borrowed to a particular level, we were able to service it. When challenges came with the servicing,
we're borrowing to service
challenges
we're basically taking new credit to pay old credit.
Well, I mean, every borrowing, part of that has been to also do debt servicing, every borrowing. But also the significant part of the borrowing, you will not disagree with me, did not go into debt servicing, it went into other matters. But here's what I'm saying. We were on a certain trajectory. And nobody can deny the fact that when we were hit by some elements, those elements then caused the trajectory on which we were going to be distorted.
So which elements were those?
Oh, come on. We know that. I don't want to really litigate those matters. Fast forward.
But Kojo, these are important because they're important because I'm not trying to, what I'm trying to say is that you see, if you borrowed $11 billion,
yes,
and under COVID you got 21 billion cedis from the contingency fund.
Yes.
That's a lot of resources.
Yes.
The central bank made a loss of 60 billion cedis.
Because of the domestic debt exchange program.
So there's been a lot of inflows.
Yes.
Now, if despite that, people have a lower purchasing power, people's incomes with their banks have been decimated or savings because of haircuts, and cost of living is high, and cost of inputs is high, and people are struggling. When you put the two together, the most important reason why you were voted for was to fix the economy. And
which we did.
No, the economy is based on our lives.
Which we did.
You have not.
No, listen. The economy is based on our lives,
yes,
and it's measured by some parameters. All of those parameters between 2017 and 2020, we saw where they were. Between 2020 and now, when we were hit by the challenges that we've gone through litigating over and over again, we've seen the distortions and the fluctuations. It is as a recognition of those distortions and fluctuations that interventions were introduced to try and arrest the situation. Today, you have a new leader of the party who is saying that, listen, I see all that has gone on. In fact, the clip that you just played, he talks about the successes and the challenges. And he talks about the fact that on the back of those and the lessons learned, there are ideas, innovations, things that he wants to do moving forward. And he's asking that we give him the opportunity to work for us and with us in honesty and integrity to deliver on those solutions. So for me, I think where we are requires us to ask ourselves, what are the opportunities on the horizon? What are the challenges on the horizon?
President Kufuor said it beautifully when in 2000 he told us that.
What are the propositions? But of course,
that means that the best measure of an economic performance is your life.
Bernard, for the 2.3 million people who have gotten jobs, they will have a view on this. For the millions of people who have benefited from social intervention programs like the free senior high school, etc., they will have a view on this. Asitna is not just cost of living. Cost of living is important, and that is why our leader speaks about it. Asitna encapsulates a lot of things. For the communities in which there were no roads, that today roads have been constructed, like my community, they will also have a view on this. So what I'm saying to you is this. It's an embodiment of many parts. Yes, our leader concedes that cost of living It's put a lot of people's purchasing power in a negative position than it was earlier, and he's tackling it. He's also got further ideas.
But is that not the objective of the whole economic intervention?
No, that is not the only. Part of the commitments we made in 2016 included things like education, like health, like infrastructure, like energy. All of those, and you can cast your eyes around all of those. We say that if you look at all of those, we have made net positive advancements in those areas. If you look at cost of living, we agree.
Which affects everything.
Absolutely.
Once
we agree that
crisis,
cost of living,
you can't pay for university fees.
If you have health insurance, so if you have a health insurance system that has been strengthened, even if there's a cost of living crisis, you have health insurance to rely on. If you have a free senior high school education, which is being expanded and functioning, even when you have a cost of living
you can go to secondary school
crisis,
but you can't go to
it
university.
can hit you. Well, now you have a student
basic
loan.
education
No, you have a student loan scheme that doesn't even
but
require guarantees. You do admit that. So the point I'm making to is an embodiment.
Kojo, listen, we all know
it's an embodiment.
The economic condition, Bill Clinton said it in 1992, is the economy. Stupid. He wasn't referring to you. The point is, at the basis of everything is the economy. Number two, that was the reason your party was voted
and
for.
This economy,
so if at the end of all the 8 years, we are still back to economic hardship,
this
you cannot say that you have delivered.
This economy is not just measured by cost of living. That's the point.
No, you are defining cost of living.
No. You know it better than I do. I'm saying that this
People's economic circumstances.
This economy is bigger than cost of living. We haven't said cost of living is not a matter globally hitting us locally that must be dealt
inflation,
with. We have said that the economy
encompasses
more than that. There's growth, there is jobs, there is physical infrastructure development, there's cost of living, there's inflation, there's currency. What we are saying is that if you take the full embodiment, you cannot say that this administration has not delivered on anything at all. We're saying that we've delivered on various areas, and in many of those areas, in a net positive. We, however, concede that in building a more perfect nation, there are parts, like cost of living, that need to be dealt with. And you have a clear part of our manifesto that responds to it. I think that what we have to do is to litigate what are our interventions on cost of living, and do they work? And what are the interventions of the other side? Do they work?
We'll come and find out what the plan is to deal with cost of living and what the manifesto hopes to do on other important aspects. This is the point of view. My guest, Kojo Nkrumah, Vice Chair of the Manifesto Committee of the NPP. They launched the 2024 manifesto, Dr. Baumia, giving a powerful speech at the end. Stay with us. Welcome back. Our guest is Minister for Works and Housing, Kojo Nkrumah, also MP for Fuasin Erebi, Vice Chair of the Manifesto Committee, chaired by former Majority Leader Osei Chairman Sabunsu, who also addressed the audience. So the other issue that I think is still within the context of the candidate and the party is more around the issue of he's promised a lot of things. And the question people ask is, he's still the Vice President of Ghana. And the things he's promising are good. For example, the third thing he touched on was taxes. He touched on a lot of what some would say very interesting tax reforms. So why is he promising when he's in government? It's almost like I want to like he says I'll scrap e-levy. You are in government.
I'll answer that question.
Why are you promising to scrap e-levy?
Today, Bernard, you are here at City. You are even general manager. Am I correct?
Supposed to be, yes.
And Samens is fully in charge. Am I correct?
CEO.
Okay. I will submit in all humility that it is not every prescription that you have made here at City that Samens has agreed with.
No, of course not.
Yes. That is what happens when you are a vice president in an administration. I'm a minister of state. I can tell you on authority that it is not every prescription that I've gone to cabinet with that cabinet has agreed with me on. So the vice president, yes, chair of economic management committee, has led in proposing several interventions. Some have been agreed with, some have been disagreed with. But to suggest that because he's a part of this administration, if tomorrow he's given the opportunity as the principal, he should be stopped from expressing any views or policy direction that is different or depart from what the collective that he was a part of pursued, is for me...
I get that. I get that. But
he is entitled, if I may land, he's entitled to have a particular vision. He's entitled to even disagree with some of the things that we have done. When he was elected as leader, he says that these are the things that we have done that have been successful. that I want to continue with.
Yeah.
These are the things that we think, or I think have been inimical, that I want to depart from. Bernard, I think that there's absolutely nothing. In fact, it is a sign of maturity
I agree with
and
you
wisdom to
in
be
the
able
principle,
to depart.
but I have two keys.
So specific.
Let me give you specifics.
You had mentioned e-levy.
Yes.
Let me just land on it.
Yes.
Today,
yes,
there's a fiscal framework and a fiscal program that has been approved and voted on and passed by Parliament,
yeah,
which we are operating,
yeah,
which requires that a particular revenue line is introduced to service expenses.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Bawumia says that 2025 January, if you vote me as your president, I'm going to change this fiscal framework. First, I'm going to cut away about 3% of GDP from the expenditure tables.
Yeah.
When I do that, it does not require me to take on some revenues.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to take away these revenues. I'll be able to also reform this tax system into this particular way. Now, for anybody to say, because you are part of this administration now, despite the fact that this fiscal program has been approved and we are working with, cause a change in it now before we can believe you about January 2025, I think is missing the real point. What he has said, if I just I'll land very quickly. What he has said is that in 2025, if you give him the mandate to be the one in whose name the budget is sent to Parliament, this is the fiscal framework he'll be pursuing. And there's nothing wrong with that.
We understand this. You see, the problem is, the general principle is correct, but you see, the e-levy was a very significant issue because the finance minister at the time was very categorical.
Yes.
He says, if you agree to e-levy, we will not go to the IMF because the IMF has nothing good for us. We did not hear the vice president comment on the IMF when he was vice president. No problem. So e-levy was a significant enough policy because many analysts, including people we even interviewed today around 15 years of mobile money, admit that e-levy interrupted the growth in our digital space, which is key policy for him.
Yeah.
So this is a significant issue. Second point, the vice president said somewhere that the GRA is harassing businesses.
Yes.
This is the vice president of the country.
Yes.
Supposed to be head of economic management team.
Yes.
And he says that the principal organization that is supposed to raise government revenue is harassing businesses.
Yes.
Now, so what is he doing about that? So is he saying that to tell us that the GRA under him will be different? He's the vice president.
Can I respond to you?
I could give you more examples.
Can I respond?
You can respond.
Okay.
There are so many examples.
So first, take the e-levy.
Yeah.
The vice president, Dr. Bawumia, even before the e-levy was introduced, was clear on his position about taxing digital payments. I have been on record at saying that when the matter came before Cabinet, he expressed his principled position on it. But in the end, Cabinet took a particular decision. Of course, it will be folly of him as a sitting vice president to come and do a press conference to announce and say that I disagree with this, that my government has gone. He expressed his position, but we take collective responsibility for what was done around the table. He has therefore now said to you that if you make him the man in charge in 2025, that principal position that he has, he's going to establish it by ensuring that this e-levy and other revenue lines that he considers as unnecessary will be taken off. There's no discrepancy between the two. I'll give you the second one. When he talks about GRA harassment, he has not said that GRA should be stopped from doing their work. He has said that there are officers of GRA who take advantage of the legitimate job that they are supposed to be doing to be harassing people. But if today you get out onto the streets of Adabraka and into the major shopping places and talk to people who are doing business, they will tell you that they experience a lot of harassment from GRA officials. When I was information minister, I remember there was a day we went into the Central Business District to, sit with the used clothes dealers. They told us the kind of harassment they go to. Dr. Bawumia is saying that if you give him an opportunity to be your president, he is going to ensure that tax administration is fully digitized, no human interface. For example, and when he said this, he was talking about this at a time when GRA introduced something they called invigilation, where GRA will send officials into shops to go and sit there and say that they were literally marking what you were selling and declaring. And it was now leading into some level of harassment. That was the point when he said that, listen, we have to move from this and get into a purely digitized system of accounting for revenues and therefore being able to tax that. Now, as head of the economic management team, you are asking about him making open admissions about things. If the head of the economic management team comes out and says that, listen, GRA's work is now getting into areas of harassment, and I want to change it and put it into this particular place, I reckon that the traders...
No, people are saying you should fix it now. We are not saying fix it now, because you have
today,
power.
Today,
yes,
there's a model that is being used today. I earlier explained to you that you already have a fiscal program that has been approved.
Yeah, but GRA harassment...
methods... No, I'm coming.
Kojo,
the methods...
I understand. There's I'm talking about administration and tax policy.
The methods.
What we are saying is that if the current vice president recognizes that in tax administration, businesses are being unfairly targeted, he ought to be doing something about it now. Can
I respond to you?
Yes.
So the methods that the GRA was using, the invigilation, since he talked about it, I'm not sure you've heard about it happening anymore. So if it's about fixing that particular one, it has been fixed since he spoke about it, and I think their union even disagreed with him. Secondly, beyond fixing it, he's saying that I want to move to a purely digitized tax administration system.
We agree with that.
Which now moves it to a different level.
That was great.
So what he's doing is clearly identifying what the challenges are. The parts of his prescriptions that are being responded to today, well and good. The parts that are cast in a mode that cannot be responded to, he's telling you that give me an opportunity from January 2025 to deal with them.
Last point on taxes, and as you rightly said, there's tax policy and tax administration.
True.
His third priority of the 14 was implementing wide-ranging tax reforms.
Yeah.
Again, one would ask, for example, introduce a flat VAT tax system in Ghana like Estonia, reform VAT regime.
A flat tax rate like Estonia.
Yes,
because that's mostly on the income tax.
Reform the VAT added tax regime. Reduce withholding tax. He lists quite a number of tax policies that he wants to implement. There was a midterm budget which didn't include any new budget, so no problems there. This government said that, or this party, when they were in opposition, said that Ghanaians were being overtaxed, and therefore we're going to move from taxation to production. In your first term, you remove what you call 15 nuisance taxes.
True.
I can count 22 taxes you've introduced in the 8 years that you've come into office. So did we go or did we come? So when he comes and says, I have ideas around tax policy reform, you remove 15 taxes, you bring 22.
What you've left out is the intervening event.
Like what?
So we removed 15. And then we were hit by headwinds that were not planned for. You see, we cannot have the conversation of the economic trajectory and wish away the intervening events.
I can list the 22 and tell you...
How many of those were introduced after the challenges?
Emission levy tax, 10% tax on betting and lottery winnings, 3% VAT flat rate, 5% national fiscal stabilization levy, 2% special import levy, luxury vehicle tax, 50% increase in communication service tax, 1% COVID health recovery levy, 3% VAT flat rate, making it 4%. 1% COVID health recovery levy and 2% national health insurance, making it 3.5%. 5% financial sector cleanup recovery levy, 20% energy sector recovery levy on every liter of petrol, 10% sanitation boiler tax, 18% energy sector recovery levy.
You will notice that the majority of the ones you were listing were introduced after we were hit by things we hadn't planned for.
Some are 2017, some are 2018.
I'm saying the majority. I haven't said all.
I already 14. There are 22.
I'm saying the majority of what you have just read.
I see.
I think all these COVID items you have mentioned were things that came after COVID. So Bernard,
was sanitation and boiler tax also post-COVID?
Check the dates on which they were put in. I'm saying to you that if this administration told you, that we were going to move from taxation to productivity, and demonstrated it by taking away about 15 nuisance taxes. And then when we were hit by challenges on the horizon, we had to introduce revenue measures to close this gap.
So minus 15 plus 22 is a net of...
No,
that's the point.
Bernard, that's too simplistic.
We have to.
That is too simplistic. It's not. You understand these things better and have to help perhaps those who don't have that full understanding to come to an understanding that, listen, in all honesty, the government took away 15, but when they were hit by challenges, they introduced some more taxes to close the gap. All that well and good. We are saying that today, Baumia is saying, for example, that tax administration still has some challenges. And if you give him the opportunity, he is going to reform the entire tax system that we are operating. I don't think that the answer is in saying that, yeah, but you guys took away 15 and brought 22, so what you are saying is not true. No, I think it's about analyzing the circumstances around which those things took place. And then secondly, analyzing the reforms that he's talking about. Do these reforms work? What are the alternative propositions to tax reforms in
I was
Ghana?
using that to say, if you say you would deal with a tax, you must have credibility on tax. So if you say you are moving from tax,
and I think we do. No, we do.
And
You have just read it. You have just
the
read
import
it.
duties and
you
all
have
the
just,
challenges.
You have just read it, and the timelines matter. And I'm saying to you that now, as he introduces these new tax measures, one of the things that we have to do is to ask ourselves: do these measures work?
But are these measures hurting? They are hurting business. They are hurting.
Which one? The old measures.
This 22 I'm listing.
But it is precisely because he comes to the view that, for example, if you take the cascading effect of the VAT alterations that have been introduced to plug today's gap, it is having an adverse effect on businesses. It is precisely because of that he says that he's going to collapse them into a single line levy and make it an output VAT which you can then
deduct. But how would you know that businesses will survive by the time he wins? Because if you're charging me effective 21% VAT based on your new calculations, when you start implementing like a year and a half ago, by the time you vote, vote for him,
the businesses that exist in this country admittedly have challenges. And what Dr. Bawumia is saying is that if you give him an opportunity, January 2025, he's amending these tax structures to deal with it. What we should be asking is, do these things work for the businesses? I have heard Guta and other businesses that have been listening.
But
and they say, if I may land,
and now you're telling them in an election they're going to remove tax when
they struggled for 3 years because of what we were all collectively hit with and how we had to resolve. Let's not take that out of the equation. But I'm saying that I have heard them saying that this is a policy proposition that they are pleased with. One of the outstanding questions is that, okay, so the other side, do they have any tax reforms in mind, or are they just capitalizing on the difficulties of today to say that, things are difficult, things are difficult, so vote them on? We need to interrogate the feasibility of these, if I may land, we need to interrogate the feasibility of these proposals and compare them to the alternative propositions.
Fair enough.
And test their feasibility.
Kojo, there's
as well.
a view that Dr. Bawumia is over-promising, because when you listen to his main opponent, he seems to be, of course, he's promised too, but he seems to be saying that we are in for very difficult times. The tone for the vice president seems a bit more buoyant with a lot of promises.
Because today he sits at the table, is privy to the data, sees the growth trajectories, sees the feasibility of some of the alternative propositions. He was telling a story about the gold purchase program and the gold for oil program, and how these two programs together have yielded about, the equivalent of $5 billion in gold purchases. And he was raising a question about, can you imagine the impact on our currency if this $5 billion was a direct demand on dollar reserves today? Why is he able to say that? Because today he's sitting close to the table, he's privy to the data, he's seeing the impact of the measures that he's testing. And he's telling you, therefore, that if you give me an opportunity, I can buoyantly say that I would now expand from gold purchase through gold for oil and now back significant forex demands with gold purchases. Today, there are multinational companies that need to repatriate hundreds of millions of dollars of profits outside. We are grateful that they haven't placed the demand for it. We are working with them to bypass the normal dollar demand because your supply of dollar is limited. But because Bawumia is close at the table and he has seen these things, has tested methods, he can be buoyant to say, for this particular one, this is the feasibility of what we have started, and we'll continue it this way to the end. Somebody, on the other hand, already says that if you vote for him, give him some breathing space, so that he can have an opportunity to figure out how to respond to some of those ones. So that is why you will see that Bawumia will be more buoyant, will be more, may I say, aggressive in saying that this one, we can fix it this way because we are testing it. And you will not see it from the Mahama side.
Is it necessarily bad if you say, let's think through our problems? People have called for consensus building on our economy. When we were supposed to go for IMF, candidate Mahama advised Ken Ofori-Atta to go to IMF probably 3 months before he went. In fact, the release on 1st July 2022 to go to IMF was directly from the president to you as information minister. The finance minister did not want to go to the IMF. So if he's now saying that we need to think through and pause and think about where our economy is, don't forget we've had 6 cycles of economic challenges.
Let me give you a specific answer.
Is that negative?
Let me give you a specific answer. When we are running an election, especially with a former president who has been at the table, and there are questions that Ghanaians are asking and are looking for answers. And one person puts an answer on the table that this is the answer, I'm piloting it, this is the result, so we can expand it. And the other person who's been former president says, you vote for me, don't worry. After you vote for me, we will have a broader consultation and conversation on how to. You should be worried. You should be worried because what it means...
You don't think consultation and consensus building is what we need?
That is what you do when you are preparing a manifesto and when you are deciding to run. When you stand on the platform that you are running, you say, I'm offering myself as president because I have thought through these issues, I have consulted people and I have answers. If you come and run and then, let me land. If you come and run and announce to us that you vote for me, vote for me because there are difficulties today. But by the way, when you vote for me, give me some time to think through the answers. You should be worried, Bernard.
We need some time to think through my next questions. So, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. My guest is the I keep on Information Minister.
I have to delete it from your head.
Minister for Works and Housing, Vice Chair Manifesto Committee, MP for Fase Ribi, Kojo Oppong, Nkrumah, who, by the way, is constituency visited by candidate Bawumia on Tuesday. Wednesday. Yeah. A manifesto is important not just for what it says, but what it doesn't say. We were calculating, we didn't hear a lot about corruption, except the solutions using digitalization. In fact, even in your top 10 categories for achievements, the one that you started by speaking about digitalization and Abu Jinapo ended on the natural resources. Curiously, nobody came to speak about corruption and good governance, which I thought was quite funny. Because again, in 2016, it was a big issue. So is it an omission? Is it I didn't listen carefully? How come in the achievements of the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia government for 8 years, you didn't see good governance as one of the top 10 things to highlight?
So corruption or the combating of corruption, good governance, and value-based leadership, you will find fully expressed. This is the full manifesto. In the limited time, admittedly, not all things. In fact, somebody told me that I didn't hear about trade and industry. I didn't hear about some other matters. They are all there, but in the limited 3.5 to 4 hours, which you were already saying was a long program, we couldn't hit on everything. There's a whole chapter that deals with ensuring good governance, and a component of that deals with combating corruption. I'll just read you a few highlights. Today, there are things we're doing that we have to deepen, and then there are new things that we have to do. So, for example, he wants to ensure that we fully integrate the National Electronic Procurement Platform for procurement. He wants to ensure collaboration between the Public Procurement Authority and the other regulatory bodies so that we can standardize the specifications of selected items procured for official use. He wants to review Section 87 of the PPA, that's the Public Procurement Act, to stipulate maximum variation in contract prices, because sometimes you can have people give a price at a certain ceiling and the variations end up being more than that, and there's reason to believe that funny things are happening in that space. He wants to also enact a new Corrupt Practices Act, which will, among other things, consolidate all the anti-corruption and corruption-related legislation and offenses that are currently scattered across various pieces of legislation, and also include in it things about code of conduct of public officers.
The question was why,
because the propositions are here.
No, I get. I'm not saying there's no corruption.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that in your top 10 thematic areas of reporting to Ghanaians,
yes,
Elizabeth Ohini came on social interventions.
And the agent.
Labi came on education.
Yes.
A young lady came on health.
Yes.
You came on digital economy.
Yeah.
There was nobody who came to say, this is the achievement of Akufo-Addo for good governance and anti-corruption, which was a major campaign pillar. That's the question. Not, I know Bawumia has things he wants to say.
No, okay, so first of all,
that's the question I'm asking you.
So Bernard, first, let's admit, until you asked and I went through it, many of your listeners will not know that these are propositions on anti-corruption and good governance because they didn't hear it on the stage.
So going forward.
So there's a value in the question you asked and the response that I gave.
Thank you.
Now, we polled Ghanaians for what the most pressing issues to them were.
Yes.
There were top 14 issues, some of which I have highlighted here. In fact, the candidate on his feet just spoke about the top 3, even though there were 14. And then what we elected to do was to give an opportunity for 10 persons to be nominated to give an update on that. In our polling, out of the 14, some of the ones that we thought were the most significant were the ones that we put out there front and center for various persons to speak to. But that does not mean that good governance, value-based leadership, selfless leadership, integrity, and the fight against corruption are not important elements. It is because they are important that you find a whole section of the manifesto dedicated to them, just as I have outlined to you. And some of these propositions, if we take our time to analyze them, in addition to what has been done already in the last 7 years, we believe it will advance our fight for better governance and our fight against corruption as well.
So you are looking forward and I'm looking back. That's the problem. I'm not saying that Dr. Bawumia doesn't have good plans for corruption. What I'm saying is that you didn't have the confidence to report on corruption.
No, we didn't have a problem with it. We didn't have a problem.
You didn't have
with
the confidence.
We had 14 issues that we could have selected from. We selected 10. The fact that corruption is something you wanted to hear and good governance is something that you wanted to hear does not mean that those who wanted to hear, for example, the aged who wanted to hear about social intervention.
It's not me who wanted to hear.
No, but you are the one who's raising it. I'm saying
but
that
it's
the
in your
fact
top
that
10. It's in your top 10.
It's also in the top 14. In the top 10.
But you didn't use it. You didn't. Okay, fair enough. I won't litigate this.
So simply put, the fact that it wasn't raised on the platform does not mean that it is not a matter that is important and has not been addressed. That's all I say on that.
Is the promise on, again, one of his big promises was on our natural resources.
Yes, protecting the environment.
Where he says ownership of our natural resources.
Okay, mineral resources.
Very big.
Yes.
The elephant in the room is Galamsey.
Yes.
Which again you can say it has been a cataclysmic failure. I mean, a colleague drove to Kumasi over the weekend to Nkoko. On the road from Osino, people were mining. Konongo, part of the road is caving in. I mean, we've had Galamsey for many years, but this level is almost unprecedented.
I don't think anybody will contest the kind of effort that was made by this administration to combat Galamsey. The results, as we are seeing today, suggest that other methods have to be adopted because the shock and awe law enforcement approach which we adopted has not yielded the full kind of results that we're all looking for. The media play their parts, government play their parts, security agencies play their part, but the results suggest that new methods have to be adopted. That is why Dr. Bawumia, close to the table, having observed how it's gone, is prescribing new methods. In this manifesto, he prescribes about 5 new methods. He says, number 1, part of the challenge is that you have all of these people claiming that they are prospecting for minerals around and inside the water bodies. That needs to stop. So the alternative is that he's going to have the state be the one to run the geological survey and point out where the deposits are. You recall a major change between the, for example, the Chachuchikata and the post-Chachuchikata era when it came to oil. In the post-Chachuchikata era, a decision was made that the state should be the one that is doing the 3D seismic data available for prospective explorers, so that this whole thing of, we are investing and therefore we'll take it out of the find is taken away. It's the same thing we are bringing into mining, that the state as a first step should be the one responsible for doing the geological survey. Number 2, we've already piloted the concept of the community mining scheme. And in places where it is working, the incidence of illegal and irresponsible mining is toning down. And you're having these same young people who are looking for minerals, looking for work to do, but we're doing it the wrong way. Now that concessions have been made available for community mining, they are concentrating their efforts there. Number 3, machinery for small-scale mining, including the gold catcher machine, etc., is already being piloted in the Ghanaian system. In this manifesto, he makes the argument that he will make the concessions available, he'll make sure Ghanaians have access to it, he'll make sure the machinery is available. There are 5 parts to it. Let me finish. Number 4, he's also introducing the Minerals Development Bank, so that those who want to go into mining can get machinery, concessions, financing, and logistics to be able to do it. And then number 5, very, very important, we are creating a market for the purchase of traceable small-scale gold. This market also ensures that those who are producing it in the legal and responsible way, because you have to go through a certain supply chain before your gold is purchased, they will have their gold purchased. Today, thankfully, we have a refinery purchased and then brought to back our gold purchase program, our gold for oil program, and now, as he's saying, as a 3rd step, our gold to back the forex regime that we are talking about. Now, his argument is that it is when you introduce this proper alternative that as you clear people off, you don't have to come back and see if they've returned, because then you've given them if you tell the person to stop mining gold and go and farm carrots, for example, the money he gets from carrots is not comparable, then he runs away from it. And this, we believe, is a strong proposition.
And I'm ending. The topic for the manifesto is selfless leadership, bold solutions for jobs and business. Bloomberg did an analysis of this and said that the vice president is the underdog in the race. Is this something the team agrees?
We do not go to bed thinking that we have won this election. Unlike, I think, in 2008, where one of our famous seniors said, Agbena. That's not what we are doing. We are in this race with a clear understanding that there are challenges today that need to be responded to, some of which we are doing. There are challenges on the horizon that we need to propose answers to, that we are putting those answers forward to. We're also clear in our mind that...
Are you the underdog or not?
No, we are also clear in our mind that in this election,
yes,
it remains a tight race, but as you speak to people who are looking for solutions, when we explain our propositions and you invite the NDC to explain their propositions, many of those leave the table saying that our answers are the best. We are clear that this is what is going to translate into the win for us in December.
Okay, good luck. Kojo Nkrumah is the vice chair of the Manifesto Committee. They put up the almost 5-hour program that culminated in Dr. Bawumia delivering his manifesto. He's also Minister for Works and Housing, and he's off to his constituency to campaign. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.